Bears are one of the most flexible and adaptable groups of terrestrial carnivorans. They have spread to every continent except Australia and Antarctica. Unlike most members of the order Carnivora, such as dogs, cats, and seals, most bears are omnivores, capable of consuming almost 90% of their diet as plant material with minimal meat when the hunting is poor, or focusing on fish and game when the hunting is good. Yet, there are extreme examples. Polar bears live almost exclusively on marine mammal flesh, while pandas are the only members of the order Carnivora that eat nothing but plants, and that is nothing but bamboo. Bears have been part of European and North American culture for many centuries. They are found in many of our legends and media, from Goldilocks and the Three Bears, to Pooh Bear, to Fozzie Bear, to Paddington Bear, to Yogi Bear, to Baloo the Bear, to the Berenstain Bears, to the Care Bears, and many, many more. Smokey the Bear has been a part of our culture for almost a century. Numerous athletic teams have tried to evoke the power and savagery of bears in their use of bears as a mascot. These include the Chicago Bears, the Boston Bruins, the UCLA Bruins, the Cal Golden Bears, and many more. For centuries, the international symbol for Russia has been the Russian bear. When California declared its independence from Mexico, they erected the Bear Flag Republic, since at one time grizzly bears roamed the entire state as their top predators. Today, only 8 species of bears are left on the planet. They are found across Eurasia and North America, as well as the spectacled bear of South America and the sun bear of Southeast Asia. They range in size from the enormous polar bear, which weighs up to 1,800 pounds, to small sun bear of Southeast Asia that weighs only about 100 pounds. At one time, there were bears in Africa as well. But bears have a long evolutionary history, going back at least 40 million years, with dozens of genera and species of extinct bears, which come in every shape and size, from tiny weasel-shaped creatures to the biggest land carnivorans that ever lived. Let's look at some of the distinctive anatomical features of bears. Most bears have massive, robust skulls with huge canines, capable of biting with tremendous force and killing almost any other animal. These wicked teeth are adapted to do a lot of things, since most bears are omnivores. Bears are very different from other members of the order Carnivora, such as cats and dogs, in that they have transformed the blade-like shearing teeth, typical of most flesh eaters, to broad, low molars with crushing cusps, and only limited shearing function, capable of grinding food and eating plants as well as meat. This transformation occurs in most omnivores, as we see in pigs, peccaries, and some primates, including humans, which are also omnivorous. And yet, if we go back 50 million years to the earliest members of the order Carnivora, their teeth are still highly adapted to shearing and slicing, so the bear lineage is the first that gives up this function and becomes omnivorous. Bears are also unusual in that they are plantigrade, walking on their palms of their forepaws and the soles of their hind feet, like we do, rather than digitigrade, walking on the tips of their toes, like most carnivorans. Bears are part of the subgroup of the order Carnivora, known as the Caniformia, or the dog, bear, weasel branch of carnivorans, rather than the feliforms, which include cats, hyenas, and mongoose. Among Caniformia, they are most closely related to weasel lineage, as well as the pinnipeds, or seals, sea lions, and walruses. Within the bear lineage is a long and complicated history. The oldest known bear relative is a raccoon-like Perictus, from beds around 37 million years old in Big Badlands, South Dakota. Although it was small, it had key features in its teeth that tell us it was an ursoid, or bear relative. From beds around 33 million years old in North Dakota, we have another primitive ursoid, the recently described Eoarctos vorax. After these primitive ursoids, the first great evolutionary radiation of bears were the Hemicyaonines, or dog-like bears, and their name actually means half dog, because most of them were built more like dogs with longer legs, and they are much more committed to meat eating rather than omnivory. They evolved from Perictus-like ancestors to larger, more advanced forms like Cephalogale from 28 to 20 million years ago in North America and Europe, and Faubourgale from 22 to 20 million years ago in France, Pakistan, and California. From beds around 16 to 12 million years in age in Eurasia and North America, we get the much bigger Plithocyan, and especially the beast that gave the group its name, Hemicyan. It was about 5 feet long, with long legs, and it walked on the tips of its toes rather than its palms and soles of its feet like modern bears do. The next subfamily of bears is the Agrotheriinae. They can be traced back to Ursavis, which is a small dog-sized animal with a slender build, short legs, and a long trunk. Ursavis originated in North America around 18 million years ago, then spread to Eurasia and persisted until only about 8 million years ago. Some scientists consider Ursavis to be the ancestor of all the more advanced non-hemicyanine bears, not just the Agrotheres. A more advanced Agrotherian bear is Andarctos, known from beds around 11 to 7 million years old in Arizona, Oregon, Texas, then spreading to China, Turkey, and Spain around 9 million years ago. Finally, Agriotherium itself dates back to 11 million years ago and persisted until the beginning of the Ice Ages, around 2.5 million years ago. It was about 7 feet long and weighed 1,600 pounds, and was the only bear to be found not only in North America and Eurasia, but even Africa during the beginning of the Ice Ages, where it had to compete with saber-toothed cats, lions, and other huge predators. All of these previous bear subfamilies are now extinct, with no living relatives or descendants. But the short-faced bears, the Tremarctini, do have a living relative, the spectacled bear of South America, which gets its name from the white markings on its face that are somewhat resembling glasses. There is also an extinct species of spectacled bear, Tremarctos floridanus, which comes from Ice Age deposits in Florida. In South America, there was once an enormous Tremarctine, Arctotherium, which rivals some other bears as the largest land carnivore that ever lived. It stood 11 feet tall and weighed about 3,500 pounds. It migrated from North America across the Panama Land Bridge around 3 million years ago, then took over the large predator niche on that continent until the end of the Ice Ages. Meanwhile, North America was ruled by the giant short-faced bear Octotus simus, which stood over 6 feet tall at the shoulder and weighed over a ton. When it reared up on its hind legs, it stood over 12 feet above the ground. It is known from Ice Age beds all over North America, from Florida to the La Brea tar pits to central Mexico to Alaska and Alberta. It was considerably larger than the saber-toothed cat or the giant Ice Age lion, Panthera atrox, so it had no real competition as the top predator of the Ice Ages. The subfamily Ursinae includes all the living bears except for the spectacled bear and the pandas. Most of them are species of the genus Ursus. The evolution of many extinct and living species of ursines is quite complex, so we'll only discuss the major taxa. These include the black bear, Ursus americanus, a smaller bear which can be black but also brown, and the brown bear, Ursus arctos, which includes the grizzly bears, Kodiak bears, and several species of Eurasian bear, such as the Tibetan brown bear. The character of Baloo in the Jungle Book was an Indian sloth bear, Melursus, while Heloctos, the sun bear of Southeast Asia, is the smallest living bear. The polar bear, Ursus maritimus, is by far the largest. Perhaps the most famous Ice Age bear is the cave bear, Ursus speleus, which is found in cave deposits all over Eurasia. It reached almost 10 feet in height and weighed up to 1,300 pounds, but was largely herbivorous. There's good evidence that our early human ancestors fought with them, often for the possession of the same caves. Finally, let's talk about pandas. The giant panda, Ailuropoda melanoleuca, is a crowd favorite in any zoo. It's clearly a member of the bear family, but it's also the first group to branch off from the rest of the bears. Famously, it's one of the few members of the order Carnivora that is a strict herbivore, eating nothing but bamboo. As scientists have pointed out, it has a strange arrangement in its front paws. The true thumb is closely pressed to the rest of the fingers, just like the dew claw in cats and dogs. It cannot grasp anything. So the panda has an enlarged wrist bone, the radial sesamoid, to make a crude version of a thumb which it uses to strip leaves off bamboo. As Stephen Jay Gould pointed out in his book, The Panda's Thumb, it's not a great design, and it works just well enough to allow the panda to survive, but it's evidence of a crummy, jury-rigged adaptation in nature. Recently, fossils from around 6 million years old was discovered in China, known as the Ailuroarctos, show how the panda's thumb evolved as a compromise between walking and needing the ability to strip bamboo. The curvature of the false thumb allows the panda to walk without tripping, while it's still straight enough and long enough to serve as a device for gripping bamboo stalks. Even more amazing is the story of the red panda, or lesser panda, Ailurus fulgens. For a long time, it was associated with the giant panda because it too eats nothing but bamboo, and it too has a bizarre jury-rigged thumb made out of wrist bone. But detailed evidence from molecular biology and anatomy shows the red panda is not a true panda after all, and not even a bear. Its closest relatives are raccoons, weasels, and skunks, so the complex apparatus of its false thumb must have evolved convergently. Genetic analysis has shown that both animals had convergently evolved genes for tasting and digesting bamboo as well. Thus, the carnivoran paw is so constrained by evolution that if they're going to develop a new thumb for grasping bamboo, they have to use the same bones of the wrist to do so. This has been confirmed by the discovery of a 10 million year old ancestral fossil of the red panda, Simosan batelleri. But it already has an enlarged radial sesamoid, even though it lived in Spain where there is no bamboo. So paleontologists suggest another function. It may use its false thumb to grab branches, since both it and the modern red panda are very much tree dwellers. Bears and their kin have evolved some amazing features over the last 40 million years. Sadly, almost all wild bear species are now endangered or threatened, not just due to habitat loss, but also due to poaching, since bear gallbladders are highly prized in Asian medicine. Even worse, climate change is melting the Arctic so fast that polar bears will soon be endangered. Polar bears used to be confined to the polar ice, while grizzlies lived in the forests to the south. Now that polar ice is vanishing, polar bears are interbreeding with grizzlies to form hybrids known as pizzlies. Despite 40 million years of evolutionary success, the world of bears is under threat from humans, both directly and indirectly, and is vanishing as we speak.